Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Dan, and today I want to talk about the amazing potential of cloud computing. I'm going to talk about what it means for business, what it means for individuals, and how Microsoft strives to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Let's begin. Now, when we think about cloud computing, it's easy to be drawn into a complex discussion of technical components. But in reality, the cloud is simply a collection of services that are delivered over the internet. Think of it as a utility. Just as gas and electricity suppliers supply heating and light, cloud providers supply fast and powerful compute solutions on a pay-as-you-use basis. But why the explosive growth? Well, again, one of the advantages of cloud computing is that it enables companies to accelerate. Today, in order to succeed, companies need to build faster. They need to be able to run cheaper and respond to demand. And they need to be able to do all of this whilst protecting themselves against complex security threats of the connected world. It's also important to remember that the cloud isn't a place. It's a model. And because of this, companies do have choice. Let me explain what I mean by breaking it down into its three operating types: public, private, and hybrid. With public cloud offerings, providers such as Microsoft offer globally distributed data centers, allowing businesses to connect to services from across the internet. In contrast, private clouds are typically located on site and used exclusively by a single organization. Finally, hybrid clouds marry both operating types, providing greater flexibility whilst optimizing existing infrastructure, security, and compliance models. But to understand the journey to the cloud, we need to think about traditional on-premises solutions. With this tier, the business is solely responsible for all aspects of IT. It's not just installing applications. They have to build networks, procure servers, they have to maintain hypervisors and patch services. Not to mention ensure that fault tolerance and high availability solutions are in place to ensure business continuity. But as we transition to the cloud, we can begin to release certain aspects of that responsibility. Take infrastructure as a service, for example. In this tier, which is sometimes referred to as lift and shift, companies can build or migrate solutions across to the cloud. This enables them to relinquish the financial and technical responsibility of maintaining the underlying infrastructure, but still affords them the luxury of maintaining full control of the operating system, applications, and runtimes. For some, platform as a service may be the better choice. This tier allows the business to become laser focused on the application and end user experience, offloading more of the underlying architecture to the cloud provider. Finally, we have software as a service. Think Office 365. In order to enjoy the industry-leading communication and collaboration tools offered by this platform, today companies need nothing more than a credit card and internet connection. So now we have a better understanding of the cloud. Why Azure? I mean, that's a fair question. Of course, there are other cloud providers and they will have big marketing budgets that tell you why they're the best. Honestly, it's like picking a car. They all have wheels, they all have doors, and ultimately you're going to pick the one that you feel most comfortable with. You know, I'm not a salesperson and I wish you well on whatever path you take. But I do believe that what sets us apart is our vision. A vision to empower every person and every organisation on the planet to achieve more. We don't compete, we simply build services that hopefully enable you to reach your maximum potential. This has been our underlying mission for over 40 years, a mission to drive technological excellence rooted in the principle that your success is our success. Today, Azure is a collection of over 200 services. They span infrastructure, serverless, and the intelligent edge. It's the world's computer, a developer-friendly hub at the heart of a connected world. Think IoT, mixed reality, and artificial intelligence. These are the ingredients for autonomous vehicles, smart cities, connected homes, and accelerated commerce. It fosters innovation. I mean, I look at it and I see a world of possibility, a tool chest of solutions where you're only limited by your imagination. And what a brave new world. Today it's not about being the biggest or the richest. We have the tools to empower everyone, and if you can dream it, then you can build it. But is it secure, I hear you cry? What happens to our data? What happens if we don't see the tin? We invest over $1 billion a year in cybersecurity, with more than 3,500 security professionals identifying around 6.5 trillion signals every day. What's more, security is built from the ground up, with layered defense in-depth models working alongside artificial intelligence. Simply put, our investment to security, safety, and protection is unparalleled. Our proactive approach to these industry standards are unique. We lead in establishing and consistently meeting clear security, compliance, and privacy regulations. This translates into a growing confidence. In fact, as of today, more than 95% of the Fortune 500 companies are inventing with Azure. From retail to automotive to airlines, they're all doing amazing things with the Microsoft Cloud. So now we have a better understanding of the cloud. Allow me to change focus. You see, one of the things that inspires me is how the cloud empowers us all. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to share my personal journey. Now this begins with my morning routine. Like many, I wake up and reach for my smart device to find out where I need to be, what meetings I have and how I'm going to get there. But more important than this is my son's routine. Now he has mild Asperger's, which means that he likes stability. In fact, a few years back as he was getting ready to start big boy school, we had real trouble adjusting to change. To help with this, I used to have a dry whiteboard in his room, and I would write down what we would do the following day every night before he went to sleep. This comforted him, which in turn gave great comfort to me. But being a technology enthusiast, I wanted to do this with technology. I wanted a new gadget, and I found that the developer community had created some software called the Magic Mirror. I was sold. I had an old laptop running Linux and an old monitor and proceeded to head to the shed so that I could drill big holes through the kitchen cupboard and into the mirror that was hanging in the hall wall. But it dawned on me that I was doing IT the old-fashioned way. I didn't want to maintain computers and operating systems. I certainly didn't want to mess up the kitchen with my dreadful DIY skills. So I migrated the app to a container and I hosted it in the cloud. This gave me the functionality I wanted, but meant that all I needed was a cheap tablet to run the session, as all the workload was being processed remotely. What's more, the application became portable and accessible from anywhere on any connected device, meaning that when changes happened, I could update his schedule and he would be notified so that he could prepare. Now honestly, we haven't used this for a few years. He doesn't need it anymore. But at the time it was invaluable and helped alleviate anxiety in a period of great change. Now a key part of my role is informing the world about the exciting developments that happen in Azure. The trouble is, with over 200 services and an aggressive development plane, it's almost impossible to keep on top of it all. This posed a problem until I realised that the solution was pretty much staring me in the face. Why not use the technology to promote the technology? With a simple workflow, I was able to automate what I was doing. And this was nothing more than a small logic app that would head over to the Microsoft blogs once every hour and then post a tweet on my behalf if it found anything new and interesting. What's more, I connected the APIs of Twitter into a database so that I could see how people were responding and my social impact. But by looking at the data, I found something interesting. I was getting false positives. I was being notified of negative sentiment for words where AI had struggled to understand the context. Words like sick and wicked, which were scored as negative but positive slang. This took me on a journey and onto the work of Phil Harvey, a data scientist at Microsoft and one of the smartest people I'm lucky enough to know. Phil had been working on this problem and had ported the complete works of Shakespeare into an Azure data lake, which is like a great big warehouse of information or a for now cupboard to most people. As you can imagine, it gets messy. So he used a data factory to clean it up and format it in a way that artificial intelligence could then score. Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you, Shakespeare isn't really my thing. I mean, I've tried to watch one of his films, couldn't get on with it. They all talk funny and truthfully I'm just not that smart. But to cut a long story short, I picked Hamlet. I mean, I'd half seen it on TV, so at least I had some idea of what was going on. What was interesting though was how AI scored the play. It had the negatives you would expect, the death, the ghost, and alas poor Yorick. But it actually scored the planning of the murder as positive. Suddenly I was flooded with remorse. Everything the scaremongers had said was going to come true. The machines were coming and they were going to kill us all. So I did what any responsible person would do. I told it the story of the Terminator. In for a penny, in for a pound, right? Let's see how crazy things can get. Fortunately, it turns out that killer robots, nuclear war and Armageddon is generally frowned upon. In fact, the only time it really sees a positive is when Arnie kills the even meaner Terminator at the end. Now, all joking aside, this tells us something very important about artificial intelligence. You see, AI eats data. You feed it the wrong data, and the only thing it will ever empower you to do is make the wrong decision with more confidence. Let me give you an example. Now, recently, the World Economic Forum posted an article about the importance of data. They reported how AI had been used to analyse 3.5 million books and identify how men and women were described across all genres dating back to the year 1900. It probably comes as no surprise that it found bias. Women were typically being described as objects, men more on their behaviours. And this kind of data poses huge risks. If we are to move forward with AI, then we have a responsibility to ensure that it's fostered in an ethical and unbiased environment. To be successful, we need to ensure that the machines we build reflect our timeless values, and that requires humanity to reflect upon itself. You see, designing ethical AI to empower others and amplify human ingenuity means that it must be fair. It must also be inclusive, transparent, accountable, and safe. These guiding principles must be firmly rooted in architectural designs and mature into systems that foster positive impact. Now, more than ever, we have to collectively think about the society that we want to live in. We need to talk openly and frankly about what the future will look like, and we need to adhere to the principles that will allow us to be considerate of social complexities. We need to avoid discrimination and embrace diversity, because then, and only then, will we be able to build AI that's both fair and just. Now, before working at Microsoft, I was actually a professional sports photographer. I spend my days alongside athletes and models and sports cars, but I gave all that up because what I really wanted to do, was work in IT. All joking aside, I couldn't keep up with the agencies. They had the money and the manpower, and I simply couldn't compete. But had I known then what I know now, I could have disrupted the industry and become a cloud-connected photographer. Let me explain what I mean. Now, my professional camera had an Ethernet port, and what I used to do was tether it to my laptop, so as I took the pictures, they would feed directly into my photo editing software. From here, I ran a workflow, creating a smaller watermarked image that I could upload into social media when I returned home. But had I tethered my laptop to my phone, I could have uploaded those smaller images into a cloud store. Then I could have run a Logic app and automated the publishing of those images directly. This means that they would have been ready to purchase minutes after pressing the shutter button. You see, this is the essence of digital transformation. With a little imagination and thinking outside the box, you can achieve amazing things. And like many kids, my son loves playing video games, and Minecraft is one of his all-time favourites. He will spend hours making the tools and building new worlds, and more often than not expect me to join in. And this terrifies me. As a middle-aged man, I can honestly say that I have no idea what I'm doing. I literally spend half of my time trying to figure out what button I should be pressing, and as every parent will attest, this simply won't do. Fortunately, we now live in a connected world where people can play with other like-minded gamers over the internet. But this gave me another headache. You see, I want my son to be able to reach out and communicate with others. But as a parent, and especially because of his condition, I also want to strongly police who he's playing with and ensure that he's being protected. So again, I turned to technology and built him his own Minecraft server in Azure. This was nothing more than going into the marketplace and filling out a form, specifying things like the name of the server and how large it should be. Within a couple of minutes, I had the server up and running and pointed my son towards it to play. But it also meant that I could whitelist the accounts that could play with him. So I spoke to the parents at the school, talked to his friends and configured their online access. This was perfect. The kids could play online and the parents were happy that they were safe. It was a win-win situation. But it actually highlighted another unexpected benefit. You see, as far as the kids are concerned, at 9:30 the cloud goes to bed. There's no arguments, there's no "they're just so unfair." They just accept that Satya turned it off. It's brilliant. I never have to be the bad person. But if we bring this back down into industry, couldn't this approach work across all deployments? Isn't this the whole idea behind elasticity and agility in the cloud? I believe it is. We're no longer bound by the restraints of on-premises deployments. We can set schedules, we can enforce limits, and we can feel confident that we will only ever pay for the resources that we consume. But technology moves forward, and today we can take that Minecraft experience outside. With applications such as Minecraft Earth and Spatial Anchors, we can explore our local park and beach, collecting objects and enjoying augmented reality multiplayer experiences. And again, I still have no idea what I'm doing, but at least I can take some comfort in the fact that I have actually managed to get my child outside. And ladies and gentlemen, that's no small feat. What is amazing though is that data can be collected from games. In fact, Michael Robson, one of the cloud solution architects at Microsoft, has for some years now demonstrated how he can extract the telemetry data from a popular racing simulator and feed that into Power BI. This data is then used to analyse speed, braking and steering and ultimately improve the driver's performance. But again, if we think a little outside the box, that data could be from IoT devices connected to a real sports car. This information could be ingested by a real team, and these insights could be adopted by a real driver. This is the power of cloud computing. I appreciate we're not all racing teams. In fact, for many, we may just be starting a small business, and that means a web presence. That goes without saying. We need it. We need it to look professional. We need it to gain visibility, stay competitive, and connect with our customers. But with the average cost of a small website ranging between £500 to £1,000, these are costs that we could do without. But what if I could draw my web page? A simple sketch on a piece of paper that I could upload into the cloud and have AI understand what I was trying to achieve? What if I could simply press a button and have the code created automatically, just from a snapshot of my drawing? Today, this isn't science fiction, it's reality. Tools such as the Microsoft Sketch to Code platform are empowering customers to build digital content with little IT knowledge. This is everything that I want from IT. Solutions for the masses and deployments that can be done by anyone. I mean, how can you not be excited by this? The technology is amazing. Now, as a single man, I'm no stranger to dating apps. I can't say that I'm particularly a fan. I mean, I would much rather be slurring my words in a nightclub and believing that alcohol has made me the sexiest, funniest, and dare I say, best dancing man on the planet. But singletons have embraced technology. And if I'm to find my forever home, then I need to do that too. Now, I'm not going to disclose which ones I use because frankly it's most of them, and seeing as we're now all friends, I'll level with you, it's soul destroying. But what I will say is that I've begun to realise that these sites contain an awful lot of bots. And let's be honest, they're not hard to spot. Anyone that seems way out of your league suddenly popping up to say hello should be a cause of scepticism. But what's fascinating is that many of the beautiful profile pictures that accompany the messages are completely fabricated too. Generative adversarial networks, or GANs, are now able to create images of people who simply don't exist. And they can do this with amazing accuracy. Take this beautiful woman for example. When she slid into my DMs, I thought that my stars had aligned. The world seemed magical. I kept thinking, what are all these sad songs about? I thought, should I call my mum, tell her the great news? But you know what? I quickly discovered that something was a little off. I mean, her answers seemed strange and they even repeated themselves at times. Now, she said that it was because she didn't speak my language, even though she was supposedly 4 miles away from me. And in my heart of hearts, I knew that I was probably talking to AI. That being said, she was beautiful, I'm stupid, so we carried on chatting for another 2 hours, only calling things a day when she began asking for my financial information. I mean, at least buy me a drink. But perhaps more worryingly is the rise of deepfake video, a technology that makes use of deep neural networks and machine learning to transpose one face onto another. Take this clip from Back to the Future, for example. Now in this scene, Marty is fighting off the affection of his future mother. But if you look carefully, you can actually see that Marty is now being played by Spider-Man actor Tom Holland and the Doc by Iron Man Robert Downey Jr. This is frankly terrifying. Deep neural networks have created synthetic replicas and blended them into pre-existing sources. And while this particular example has no real societal, political or even malicious intent, many deepfakes are now being produced that do. They're being used to influence and modify behavioural patterns. In fact, by October last year, Forbes were reporting that over 15,000 deepfakes were in circulation on social media. That's a rise of 84% from the year before, and a problem that's only getting worse. Fortunately, there are some telltale signs that give deepfakes away. Let me elaborate. Now, as I mentioned before working for Microsoft, I was a professional photographer. So I've been trained to look at the eyes. You see, the eyes give everything away. Look at any magazine model and you'll see from the eyes just how the photographer used lighting to extenuate the model's beauty. But the eyes are also the Achilles heel of deepfakes. You see, many of them learn by crawling through images. But here's the thing, we never upload bad images, do we? Our eyes are always open, our smile is always beaming. This means that the reference data of such neural networks is skewed. It only has the good to work with. So things like eye blinking, which is part of natural communication, has become a real challenge. Okay, let's wrap this up with one final example. Now, I'm a type 2 diabetic, have been for over 30 years. And this is something that I've had to continually fight. Not just the disease, but the stereotypes behind it. You see, type 2 diabetes is a byproduct of metabolic syndrome. And that's nothing more than a combination of issues that are caused by poor lifestyle choices. This affected my dad too. In fact, one of my most vivid memories was of him getting a blister on his toe, then a week later having to have half of his foot amputated due to infection. It terrified me because it was like looking at my own future. But if I'm brutally honest with myself, I never really understood the disease. I was ignorant and ran with the advice that I'd been told. What's more, as it progressed, I needed to consume more and more medication to maintain control. This put significant strain on the NHS, who today spend around £9 billion a year treating the millions of Britons thought to be living with a condition. For me though, this really came to a head in late 2017 when I was diagnosed with diabetic retinopathy, a breakdown of the cells in the back of my eyes which, if left untreated, could lead to blindness. I was distraught, and rightly or wrongly, the only thing that I could think about was how my son would cope if I went blind. This is going to sound a little morbid, but during the week when he was with his mum, I would blindfold myself, and I tried to map out the house so that he wouldn't feel scared if the worst happened. Obviously, that would have never worked, but it just highlights where my head was at. Now, as I began to sink into depression, I knew that I needed to take ownership of the problem. I couldn't afford to passively follow the advice of my medical team because the disease was just getting worse. So I decided to reduce the problem to data and found out about the Night Scout project. Now, the first step of the project was to set up continuous monitoring of my levels. I'd become aware of sensors that you could purchase that would allow you to take readings by using the NFC reader on a phone. But this meant holding the phone up to scan throughout the day, and honestly, once I'd invested my time into the project, I wanted this to become automated too. So I found an NFC bridge, a small cap that fitted over the initial sensor and performed a scan every 5 minutes. What's more, because it was tethered to my phone over Bluetooth, it meant that the data collection became hands-free. It was from here that the Night Scout project really came into its own. I was able to run a small app that pushed the data up into the cloud, allowing me to visualize the results. I was blown away by just how simple it was to connect everything together using the data ingestion tools of Power BI. This in turn gave me the confidence to look at bringing in data from the other IoT wearables that I had. I mean, why not the sleep data from my fitness tracker, or the punch statistics from my boxing trackers, or even the body composition from the machines at the gym? The fact is, we are surrounded by data. Why wasn't I making better use of it? Now here's where the story gets interesting. By seeing this massive influx of data and being able to set trends, I began to get better insights into what my diet and exercise routines were doing to my body. Let me just level with you. I have read every diet book out there, and FYI, they all contradict one another. Pick one up and you'll be living off plants, another and you'll convince yourself that you need to be a carnivore, the next will have you pouring butter in your tea. But by reducing the problem to data, I was able to see the facts. I had clarity, and clarity empowers you to make better decisions. So I began self-experimenting. I started looking at what I was eating, how long it took to elevate my sugar levels, and how long they would remain high. What I discovered was that my sugar levels were not dropping. And this was because the mean time between meals was set too low. Let me explain. It takes between 8 to 12 hours for the body to digest food, with the macronutrients beginning to break it down at around the 3.5 hour mark. But we're having 3 meals per day, and even if we're generous and say that they're spaced out at 7-hour intervals, we're still not allowing the digestive cycle to complete. On top of this, we like to snack. We're all guilty of it. Be it a biscuit or a banana, it's going to break the digestive cycle, and that increases insulin resistance. This can in turn lead to metabolic syndrome and, more often than not, weight gain. Now, I know what you're thinking. How did I learn all this? I visualised it. Visualised it with the help of my HoloLens. I mean, they say a picture paints 1,000 words, and what better way to learn the digestive system than to take a walk around it? But you know what else I found incredible? The time that I was eating. For example, if I ate my breakfast at 6 AM, my sugar levels would be significantly higher than if I ate that exact same meal some 2 hours later. And I believe that's because of cortisol, our fight or flight hormone. You see, when we wake up, our cortisol levels are elevated. It sets us up for the day and ensures that we get out of bed. This in turn increases insulin production, which can in turn cause insulin resistance, especially if you have metabolic syndrome. So eating when my cortisol levels were elevated caused my blood sugar levels to be higher. Ultimately, I found that my optimal eating pattern was 1 large meal per day between 11 AM and 1 PM. This meant that my sugar levels would rise but then significantly reduce as the day progressed. What's more, by not having to process food, my sleep cycles began to improve. I fell asleep easier and the quality of sleep was higher. But even with this, I found an opportunity to use technology, and I did this with my smart home lighting. Let me elaborate. Now, as I said, when we wake, our cortisol levels are elevated. But this has been proven that natural light reduces the hormone. Now, natural light runs at about 10,000 on the Kelvin scale. This is a blue-white light which stimulates the brain. So in order to reduce the hormone, I could either go for a lovely long walk or configure my lighting accordingly. In contrast to this, melatonin, the hormone that makes us sleepy, is maximised with a Kelvin temperature of around 3,500 and will naturally come across as a warm reddish colour. Again, by setting up some lighting workflows, I was able to dynamically change the colour and luminosity of my home lighting throughout the day, stimulating the right hormones at the right time and reducing insulin resistance. This tied in with the data collected from the devices around me, enabled me to build a better picture of what was happening to my body. This in turn ensured that I made the right decisions. So where are we today? We're in a good place. I'm 70 pounds lighter, 11 inches smaller, and I haven't used medication for over a year. Technology has been the enabler that's empowered my transformation. The right tools have given me the confidence to stand here today, healthy, drug-free, and hopeful of my future. And with that, I want to thank you all for your time. I want to encourage you to think outside the box and look at technology with a sense of wonder. Because when we do, we are capable of so many amazing things. Thank you.